Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the TASL Fantasy Football Chat podcast. It is Tuesday, the 20th of October, and this is episode 5. There's just no defence. Rob, it's good to be back.
Yeah, hello everyone.
How are we doing? You okay?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah. It's like you were saying, missed it last week.
I know we did, and look, I mean, maybe apologies are required in the first instance, just to let everybody know. Obviously, we did promise everybody a transfer special, but unfortunately, you know, podcasting isn't our full-time job, as much as I think we'd probably love it to be. We had lots of other things going on, and we just ran out of time, really, didn't we? We, you know, it
wasn't for want of trying.
It wasn't for want of trying. We tried to rearrange a couple of times, and unfortunately, life gets in the way, as it often does. Is there any defense for that? I just suppose there's just no defense for it, and we're going to have to make up for it in this episode. That was nice, wasn't it? That was.
Yeah, I love the way you segued in.
That was a nice subtle thing. So obviously it's been 2 weeks, but in game week 5, you had a very good week, Rob.
I did.
You came away with 83 points, thanks to your best buddy Heung-min Song, who you wedged back in that team.
I did. Yeah, and I forgave him, and I think that's one thing. You see, that's part of growing as a human being, is being able to forgive, and I did forgive him. And I put him back in, and he repaid me. He repaid my faith. So I don't want him to be injured anymore. I was actually quite pleased that De Bruyne was injured. I know that sounds awful, but sometimes that you have those so many choices. Whichever one you make is going to be the wrong one. But when they remove that choice for you, it makes life so much easier. So,
I know what you mean, and
yeah,
I tried to be very clever and leave De Bruyne in. With the hope that he would have a miraculous Heung-min Song recovery. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The thing is, I'd already spent a transfer. I'd got rid of William Saliba, who I'd had in from before the season started, because he's just leaking value to bring in young Mitchell for Palace. And De Bruyne, I should have waited possibly, you know, because ultimately... I mean, Mitchell only ended up scoring me 1 point, and with Vardy not playing as well, it cost me. And you know, I was lucky to scrape together the 56 points that I had in the end, thankfully to captaining Harry Kane, and obviously I picked up a few points with Danny Ings and Robertson as well. But other than that, I did not score anywhere, and so it was a difficult week for me, and you know, I'm going to drop the bomb for all of our millions of listeners out there straight away, but I have activated the wild card. It is coming, and as we've intimated to anyone that has been listening before, there are accompanying challenges in our league to activating said wildcard.
I always get the impression the wildcard videos take more effort than this podcast.
Oh, 100%. I've already recruited help for the filming of my. I feel like I need to start storyboarding. I mean, one thing that we're probably remiss to talk about is the fantastic intro music that some people may have noticed at the start of this. We got so engrossed in wildcards and talking about the game, but I think actually we need to give a big shout out to Andy Simmons, who's a very good friend of ours. He is a member of the TASL League. He's a founding member of the TASL League and current league chairman. I said that current as if that potentially might not last very long. Sorry about that, but there's no plans to overthrow him at the moment. I mean, let's not rule anything out. But I mean, if he keeps, I don't know. I don't even know. I know. I feel like, was it a Freudian slip? I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, I mean, he has banged us a wicked intro out the park there. He's done a bit of an outro stuff, which you'll hear at the end as well. But big thank you to him. I, for one, love it.
Yeah, it's very good. I'm just really appreciative he's taken the time to do it for us.
100%. And I think I only listened to it over. I mean, he sent it very quickly after last week's episode went out. And I think since then, I've only listened to it around 258 times, something like that. So, so yeah, but big thank you to Andy. And yes, the wildcard is active. I will be uploading my wildcard video onto the channel as well. So feel free to drop some comments and likes and tell us what you thought of that one. But yeah, I'm busy working away. I'm on about draft number 4, I think. And to be honest with you, Rob, I'm not going to reveal anything. I don't want to reveal anything at this stage. I've still got a lot of thinking to do. I think out of my current team, only 4 players have got a chance of keeping their place.
Yeah, that's a big slice and dice, isn't it?
It's an overhaul, and I think it's a good time to do it, because what you got to remember with this first wild card as well is it's a shorter first half of the season as it will be the second half. So I think you only had a couple of weeks. It's something like there's 2 or 3 extra game weeks in the second half, and obviously it's a use it or lose it situation. And whilst I would love to be in a position where I could keep it, I'm sitting at a rank of 1.8 mil overall, and in the head-to-head TASL league, you know, it's not looking great. I'm already 6 points off top, and I feel like I need to stem the flow. I feel like at the moment, whilst my overall point score isn't the worst in the league, I'm not feeling confident in the team I'm putting out, and I'm very heavily reliant on a few players. And obviously, De Bruyne and Vardy picking up knocks. They're 2 big performers for my current team. So yes. The risk was there, and I feel like it's time to act on that. But yes, I mean, you must be very happy. I can't imagine you're making a huge amount of changes to your team, Rob. So shall we start talking about the games that happened?
Yeah, absolutely. It was another strange weekend.
It was a great weekend of football. I mean, maybe not yesterday with the 1 goal in 2 games. I feel sorry for anybody that paid the £15 for West Brom 0, Burnley 0. I mean, what were you thinking in the first place? But secondly, if you have gone and paid that, then I'm really sorry for you. But Everton Liverpool kicked us off. And what a fantastic watch for the neutral. Probably less so for Liverpool fans. I mean, I think actually, Rob, if you don't mind, I'd like to offer an apology to all Liverpool fans on behalf of all non-Liverpool fans. We would like to apologise for Liverpool becoming the first club where a decision's not gone their way and they've had a really bad injury out of it. That's never happened.
Too bad injury.
That's never happened to any other club in the past. And so I understand the Liverpool fans' frustrations.
It was
I'm
just
sorry,
I couldn't help
thing
myself. To happen, wasn't it?
I mean, I don't know where we start.
It was just an odd.
We need to start with the Van Dijk Pickford incident, don't we?
Yeah, we do. It was just an odd set of instances. You've got VAR there to stop this kind of thing, and to have 2 tackles like the Richarlison one against Thiago and the Jordan Pickford one against Van Dijk, both caused them injury. One of them very serious, and there's no repercussions. There's no sending offs. There's no consequences for what was effectively foul play, and that's with VAR, which was brought in to stop these kind of occurrences happening. It's just an really odd situation, and then the disallowed goal as well.
I remember texting the boys at the time and saying, you know, Liverpool have been robbed there, because that's not what offside should be about. But the problem with VAR is you're always going to have those fine line decisions. No matter what way you define it, there will always be a line to be drawn. And so for me, it's either now at the point where you accept VAR as it is and accept that you're going to have those kind of decisions, or you bin it and just accept that there's going to be human error. And so you have to select which of those evils you would rather for me.
When they talked about the objection to bringing VAR in, one of the reasons people would give is, oh, it all works itself. I get it. I do understand it. For the most part, VAR's been okay. I think we talked about before about offsides. I think the offsides are being harshly applied. I think that they're taking the sport out of the game a little bit. But as I understand it, there'll be instances later on in the season where Liverpool will get the rub of the green from the VAR decision. But Saturdays was so unusual, and it's been commented on that the referee who looked at the decision with Pickford and Van Dijk didn't think that it could be a foul because it was offside, and there was so what he's effectively saying is that if an offence happened just before you, I don't know, stab someone on the pitch, then it's not a foul. So
it is bizarre, isn't it? Do you think he was protected? I know what you're saying. It is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And do you think he was also protected because he was a goalkeeper? And we don't usually think about goalkeepers making challenges.
Well, no. I just think it was no, I don't, because he was off of his feet. I mean, if you look, you've seen the challenge. He was clearly going for Van Dijk. There was no attempt for the ball at all, and it was just one of those decisions that probably 90% of the other games that would have happened in, it'd have been gone.
Yeah. I agree.
And then it changes the whole perspective of the game, doesn't it?
It does, and it makes it a completely different game. You're right, and it doesn't very often happen. And I know I joked about it at the start of this segment, but I do really sympathise with Liverpool fans over this one, because to have two decisions with that and the offside go such against you is unusual. But I mean, going to the actual football. We saw excellent goals from Mane and the fraud that is Mohamed Salah. I mean, I have to say the Salah finish was phenomenal. What a goal that was, because it's come to him. I think it was Mina heads it away, and he's just snapped at it, and it was an amazing finish. So you've got to give him that one. Probably the only thing he's done in the whole game, but let's not go into that nonsense again. And the man, the locomotive up front for Everton, the man who cannot stop scoring, young Dom Calvert-Lewin did it again with another excellent header. He towered above Robertson. I think it was trying to cover him at the back post. I mean, Robertson didn't even try and jump. I don't know what Robertson was thinking. I mean, maybe he had a Superman syndrome where he just saw this shadow coming over him and decided to cower. But I mean, we kind of mentioned this is a problem for Liverpool in the sense that we felt like, I believe you agreed with me when I was saying we felt like Liverpool should have addressed the defence a little bit more and maybe look to bring in that one extra centre half, because now, you know, you've got Gomez and you've got Matip, who's only just come back from an injury, let's not forget. And of course, you've got Fabinho, who's looked good covering when he's next to Van Dijk. But I mean, that's all you've got there now, isn't it? And that are you worried about that, particularly with Alisson injured as well?
Yeah, I mean, Alisson and Van Dijk were the two main parts of the core of the team that have led to the success they've had. I mean, I was trying to put a positive spin on it in my head the other day. I was thinking about Van Dijk. Well, he might miss a big chunk of this season. He's had two very intense seasons in which it's been extraordinary. He might miss the European Championship. So I've got my fingers crossed for that, because it means he'll be back fresh next season.
Well, we wish him well, of course. But I mean, from an FPL point of view, obviously, as anyone that's listened before will probably know, and as you know, I've had Robertson and Trent in from the very start. And it's more for their attacking outlet. You know, I felt like their value as attacking outlets outweighed anybody at a similar price in the midfield, for example. Is this the time now where they're perhaps going to have to think more defensively, and or are they going to carry on as normal, knowing that they don't have as much security at the back? Because I think at times teams clearly have a freedom to play attacking when they know they've got one of the best keepers in the world in goal, when they've got one of the best centre backs in the world there. There's been talk of should Liverpool go to a back three, but I mean, what do you think the value is now with Trent and Robertson in relation to these injuries? Do you think it's going to have a big impact for them, or do you think it's going to their attacking returns should still be
their
value
attacking
at their
returns should
price?
still be there, but it's also they're going to concede, and I think if you remove somebody as good as Van Dijk, they're going to start conceding more goals. You've already got Adrian in goal. He's not as good as Alisson.
No, another position they didn't address in the window.
Well, I suppose they didn't think they needed to, because he stood in last season. He did well enough when he was needed. But I do think that Liverpool still try to play in the same way. And they've got Fabinho, who can slot into a centre-back. I know that he could possibly play alongside Gomez. They've got a wealth of choice in midfield to fill in. So it's whether Fabinho can go into that back four with
not Matip, no.
Gomez. Well, I think Matip is apparently on the potential injury list as well.
Oh gosh, really?
So,
okay.
But Gomez is a brilliant player when he's alert. He's not had a particularly great start to the season, but then I don't think any of the central defenders have across any of the teams. I don't think it's
not
really.
It's
not just to these two. I mean, we talk about.
You could argue there's a couple. I mean, Connor Cody's been excellent.
He's been all right. They've still conceded goals, haven't they, for the most part?
Yeah. I think we still need to find a pattern in the season a little bit, and because surely teams won't. I mean, obviously we've named the title of the episode. There's just no defense, but I mean, surely there becomes a point where people are kind of going to say, we can't keep conceding goals like this. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that is to talk about perception and reality of whether people are conceding more goals, or whether over the years, because it's always been talked about, this drop in the ability to defend. So I went and looked on the statistics for goals scored, or average goals scored over a season, and you can see that up until from about 2009-10 onwards, there was a jump. There was a jump in the number of goals scored, and it's been fairly consistent. Just about they were average of about 2.75 goals a game, and that's been consistent across all of the seasons. I mean, you get a few anomalies in there, but there's a trend, and that increased from the previous 10 years. So it's not like we've seen the death of defending over the last decade. But this season in particular seems really unusual, and I think we touched on before we started the podcast that it's that lack of having a crowd there, someone on your back, even if you're the home team. That little bit of fear, a little bit of anxiety, where you want to perform because you've got all these thousands of people watching you.
Yeah.
So it makes you a bit sharper. It sharpens you up a bit.
Absolutely, and. There's a theory in psychology, used in sports psychology quite often, called the catastrophe theory, and what this is quite a basic theory, but what it essentially shows is that as you increase stress levels, performance levels increase, and you can apply this to most walks of life. You could apply it to your job, where often if someone applies a bit of stress to you, as long as it's at the right level, you will perform. What happens as you continue to load the stress is that you will begin to plateau to the point where your performance eventually will absolutely crash. And I think a lot of clubs at the moment, or particularly the defenders, seem to be, since they've got no kind of external stress, positive or negative, coming from the crowd, it is negatively affecting their performance a little bit. And I mean, conversely, I guess when you look at somebody like Pickford, I look at him and he reminds me a bit of how Joe Hart used to get at times, like in the penalty shootout against Italy, where Pirlo just absolutely dinked him. He used to get himself into such a heightened, stressed, like hyped up mode that I think it probably had an adverse effect on his performance. And I wonder if that happens with Pickford as well, because he always seems to look so scatty and so hyped up and so stressed and worked up for the game, whether it's shouting at his defense or whatever. And, you know, I just wonder whether this leads to some of these rash decisions that he's making, not just from a Croc in Van Dijk point of view, but if you look at, you know, I mean, the Henderson goal, which was disallowed, you know, that would have gone down as an awful mistake from Pickford. So yeah, it is an interesting one. The crowds not being there is definitely not having an effect. Is having a large effect, I should say. But yeah, it is what it is. We'll see if the government decide to change that anytime soon. Meanwhile, we had the coming out of Timo Werner from a goal scoring point of view. Of course, you haven't. If you're thinking you've missed something on Twitter, you haven't. He has repaid the few managers that have decided to keep him in, and even managers that decided to accidentally captain him, mentioning no names, but maybe they recorded the intro to the podcast, maybe they didn't, who knows. Timo Werner is on the sheet, Rob.
I know, yeah. It's unfortunate, but I knew it was going to happen at some point.
Yeah, but it's only two. He should have had a lot more. But Danny Ings on the sheet again, and you know, I was saying this to you before. Every time I watch Danny Ings at the moment, he impresses me more and more. He just looks like, in a Southampton side, which, let's be honest, is bang average. He just looks like he could score with every attempt. And I am a true Danny Ings believer. I'm well on the Danny Ings bandwagon, and that's his price as well. I just think he's a value. I really do.
I was saying to you just earlier on that he showed glimpses of this at Liverpool, and his positioning is fantastic. And it's just unfortunate he had all those injuries at Liverpool, and I think that Southampton has been perfect for him. He's getting game time. The pressure is less to a larger club, and I hope he doesn't go to Tottenham. I know that he's been linked with the move, but I don't think he will now. No, I think that he should stick where he is, and he's a real performer.
There's talk that he's potentially about to sign a new contract there.
I hope so.
So good for him. Che Adams, I know a lot of people got on to Che Adams. His potential chance creation in terms of assist and goals was always very high, despite his lack of attacking returns, and he's rewarded people with a couple of bonus points, a goal and an assist. So good for him. He's one to keep an eye out on. Tonight, breaking news. Breaking news. We have seen tonight that Petr Cech has been drafted in as emergency cover for Chelsea as a goalkeeper. Does this have anything to do with how bad Kepa was once again in the game on Saturday? I mean, his rick for the Che Adams goal was laughable. Once again, I go back to Martin Tyler saying, "Does this boy need glasses?"
Do you know what I love is the fact they brought a new goalkeeper to replace him, and he got injured.
Incredible.
And he's been replaced again by the same keeper who keeps letting him down.
Incredible scenes. I mean, I thought Petr Cech was off to play ice hockey somewhere. I was sure I read he was going to be an ice hockey goalkeeper, but nope, he's been drafted back in. And the evergreen Petr Cech. Let's see if he ends up playing a Premier League game this year. That'll be fun.
Quite possible.
We had, in honesty, we had what was quite a dull game with the Man City 1-0 against Arsenal. Sterling and Foden with the attacking returns. An interesting one that doesn't tell us a lot. I mean, Thomas Partey made his debut as a substitute, but I mean, I was frustrated after the game to the point where I suppose it's indicative of how far Arsenal has come, because usually I'd sit down to Man City away with a trepidation, but an acceptance that we're possibly going to get a bit of a drubbing, and at least it gets it out the way for the rest of the season. But I actually went into the game thinking not only could we get something out of it, we could potentially win. Now, we had some chances, and Saka had a fantastic chance, which was brilliantly saved from Ederson in particular. But I think it's probably a fair result, but it could have been different had Arsenal taken some chances. So an interesting couple of teams to watch moving forward. Obviously, it's going to be interesting to see how long De Bruyne is out for, but at the same time, Aguero's back as well, which should be a boost for Man City.
Well, you kept De Bruyne in there, didn't you?
Yeah.
Kept him in for it. Your long game, I think you're playing. Is that right?
Well, wildcard's active, Rob. That's all I can say.
You don't want to give anything away, do you?
We then had an interesting game, the first on Sky Box Office, where people have to pay £15 to watch these games. I mean, I think the least said about that, the better. I don't think we're a fan of what's going on there, particularly when crowds aren't allowed in. But from a point scoring perspective, Rashford came to the party with a couple of assists and a goal, of course. And there was an element of redemption, I suppose, with Harry Maguire getting on the score sheet. But Fernandes missed his usual once a game penalty, which was interesting. And I just wonder whether they still flatter to deceive a little bit, Man United. I'm in no rush to be getting any of them in my team at the moment. You know, Fernandes is a little bit like Mo Salah for me at the moment, where, you know, he's brilliant in flashes, but he doesn't seem to. You don't seem to watch it. Like sometimes I'll watch like Sadio Mane, and he'll just own it for the whole game. He's the best player on the pitch. You know, we've had the international break recently, and Grealish against Wales. It was clear to everyone watching he was the best player on the pitch for the whole game by a mile. But there are players, of course, that come in flashes and they do the business. And Fernandes is clearly one of these for Man United. And look, he's been brilliant for them. But I still don't know whether I mean he got a goal and assist. Whether, you know, he missed a penalty, but he got a goal and assist. But Newcastle are the kind of team that like to roll over and have their bellies tickled by some of the big boys on occasions. And I wouldn't just be thinking Man United are back on track just yet. I don't know what your thoughts are, Rob.
Well, he keeps saying that the season starts now, and I think that's really funny for a manager to say that, because it doesn't. It started like 4 games ago, and he's trying to rewrite what's happened so far. They've been awful, and they were. How has it taken them that long in the game against Newcastle to break them down? I mean, it was in the 86th minute, something in the 80th minute. Yeah. It was most of the game they were struggling to break Newcastle down, and I just listening to Ollie Solskjaer, it's embarrassing when he's got a team like that to be performing that poorly. I mean, Martial hasn't really been firing yet, has he? He's not really kicked in.
Chance for Cavani maybe in the coming weeks.
Could be, yeah, it could be. I mean, one of the things that you said there about Fernandes and staying away from United players, I'm staying away from them for now until they've kind of hit a bit of consistency, if they ever do, under Solskjaer. Again, this season they had like I said, last season they were the mainstay on my side, but now they seem unsettled. I mean, Greenwood didn't play, did he?
No.
And there seems to be something going on there with Greenwood. The only one out that side is probably be Fernandes, and that's because he gets a penalty. I think it's part of his contract with the Premier League, or whoever it is his son is.
Even after the game's finished.
Even he gets a free penalty. It's guaranteed. So he's the only one that I would consider at the moment. And even then, the price that he's at on the game is quite a lot for the returns.
It is, I think, especially when you look at the way someone like Son is playing at the moment, and you know, you compare the likes of Fernandes to, I guess, a fit and firing Kevin De Bruyne, and you know, they're not that far away with the prices. And so I think, we're just going to have to see whether Man United can start running a string of decent results together, and that might be the time to look to invest. So moving on then to Sunday, we had a couple of dull games to start us off with. Sheffield United 1, Fulham 1. Mitrovic had a bit of a mare in the sense that he missed a penalty. They then took the lead through the useful-looking Ademola Lookman, and then Mitrovic went on to give away a penalty to allow Sheffield United to equalise. I mean, it wasn't a great game, and again, there's not many people that are going to be filling players with these two teams, I don't think.
No, those 4 games, you had West Brom versus Burnley, you had United versus Sheffield United versus Fulham, and then there was
Palace,
I think they're going to be I think those 4 games specifically are going to be the relegation teams.
The teams, I think you're right.
I think with Burnley and West Brom, I mean, who would pay $14.99 to watch that? I mean, seriously,
it was funny because I was listening to the radio at the time, and the guy who was kind of jumping in to give them updates was trying to sell us the fact that it was quite an exciting 0-0. He wasn't doing a great job, but I mean, you know, one of the guys on our group commented how many people are actually paying for that game, and it would be an interesting thing to see.
Yeah, it would seem like self-flagellation to pay for that. It's not something I would definitely wouldn't be paying to watch. I mean, free on maybe Channel 5 or something. But yeah, and I think this goes back to the greed that that's being shown around these games. It's really missed the mark, I think.
It is. They have one game that didn't miss the mark was Spurs 3, West Ham 3. What a game this was to watch. Spurs absolutely flew out of the gate with goals from Son and 2 from Kane. 3-0 up at half-time. Everybody's hunky-dory. The legend says that West Ham decided to send David Moyes home at half-time, given how well he'd done working purely through Zoom. So other online call systems are available, of course. But yeah, I mean, what an amazing result. And not only did they equalise with the last kick of the game, they equalised with an absolute thunder what's-it from Manuel Lanzini. And I remember shouting out loud in my lounge to the point where my wife came downstairs to ask if everything was okay, and I said yes, everything is fantastic.
Yes. So your daughter's suffering from PTS from the shouting in the
I didn't think Arsenal were playing today. They're not. I mean, what a game. What a game. And I mean, Jose was clearly baffled at the end when he was interviewed. He wasn't sure what quite happened. Very Spursy thing to do. And I mean, from an FPL point of view, Kane's done the business, Son's done the business. Reguilon got an assist. He's an interesting one to watch if they can sort things out on the back at the back. But I mean, I think there was a stat which said West Ham became obviously the first team ever, or certainly in the Premier League era, to come back from that deficit within that time frame left in the game. And Moisey was dancing on the pitch at the end. I'm probably not one to be signing up for Strictly Come Dancing, David Moyes, let's be honest.
Him and Pardew have a dance-off.
Oh, Pardiola. Yeah, there'll be a few people which will have seen that down at Crystal's.
Roberto Martinez throwing in. But I've just been looking. Do you remember the Bale jinx, the curse of Gareth Bale? Do you remember that?
I do.
Do you remember that?
Oh, of course. I remember everything that compiles misery on Tottenham in any form.
So he came on and they lost all 3 goals, didn't he?
And he missed a sitter. He missed a sitter. He done so well to get in and then dragged it wide. I mean, it would have been the dream return, but he gloriously missed it. And is this the new Bale curse? I hope so.
Being in Wales, he's like royalty. But it's good going back and searching for the curse of Gareth Bale. And the first curse, it was he'd not been in the winning side for 2.5 years when he was in the starting 11. That's 22 games. So this could be the start of the new. And I'm sure the next week he's going to come in and bang in a hat trick. But
you never know.
Yeah,
I have to say he did. As skillful as he looked at times on the ball, I mean, he ended up giving the ball away for in the build-up to the free kick, which then led to the equaliser. But I mean, you can't really blame him too much for that. I mean, look, it's his first game back after a long injury, but from the glimpses I saw, I worry that he's lost. Or I would worry if I'm a Welsh fan or a Tottenham fan, which I'm not either of. But I would worry that he's potentially lost a yard of pace, and he's not played a lot of football. I mean, let's be honest. As much as he enjoys playing golf, you don't sprint from tee to fairway to green kind of thing.
No.
So you do worry whether it's going to take him a little while to get up to scratch. Well, you worry if you've got him in your fantasy team or if you're a Spurs fan. If you're an Arsenal fan like me, it's delicious. And
it is, and it's all his moonlighting in his bar on a Saturday night. That's probably what it is. If he's tired.
Absolutely. And I mean, one more shout for the Lanzini goal. I mean, Spurs should rightly be embarrassed at their performance, but equally there's no goalkeeper that stops that Manuel Lanzini strike. I mean, it reminded me, Rob, a little bit. Sorry to bring this up. It reminded me a little bit of do you remember the Jagielka equaliser for Everton late on?
No.
Of course you don't.
No,
So, moving on, we had, I mean, Aston Villa, they still remain the only team to go perfect, and we cannot heap enough praise on the main man, Emi Martinez.
Yeah, fantastic. I think they've got a bit of a bargain there in the keeper. I think I was a bit surprised Arsenal let him go, but I understand that they prefer Leno to.
You can understand the business that was made, because he's gone from, you know, we wouldn't have got a quarter of that transfer value before his performances post lockdown. But I mean, I try really hard to say through gritted teeth, good for him, and I wish him the best, and I hope he does really well, because he seems like such a genuinely nice bloke. If you hear about his story and how, you know, he left his family in Argentina and to make sure he could kind of send.
Came over on a dinghy and sailed over.
Oh, you know, a hell of a trip. But I mean, you know, you've got a. I mean, it wasn't a great game, the Villa-Leicester game, but Villa have come away with the win, an injury time winner from Barkley. And if Barkley can gain a bit of consistency, he could be a shrewd pick in some FPL teams.
Yeah, he could be. Yeah, I thought he had a good game. And, I haven't actually seen Villa play, but all the statistics show how well they've been doing. I mean, when they spanked Liverpool the other week, I think Liverpool might have been caught by surprise by them. So.
It's interesting because Aston Villa they beat Arsenal, I think it was 3-1 or possibly 4-1 in a behind closed doors pre-season friendly. And I remember thinking, because Arsenal were playing quite well in their pre-season games, I remember thinking at the time, gosh, that's a good result for Villa. They've done well. But then I did see also Mesut Ozil was playing in that game, so I didn't think too much about it. But definitely one to keep watching. I mean, you know, they've got a decent run of fixtures coming up, Aston Villa, and I definitely think it's time to start looking at their players. I mean, they're at home to Leeds next game, who aren't the biggest scorers, despite how threatening they may look at times. They've got then Southampton at home the next game. And then they've got Arsenal, which is the big return for Emi Martinez. And, you know, Arsenal aren't scoring a huge amount of goals at the moment either. So 3 interesting games coming up for Villa. And I definitely think there's some value in their players, you know, particularly in the likes of Martinez, Barkley, Grealish, Ollie Watkins, you know, Mings, Cash, those guys as well. So interesting to keep watching Villa. I think the last thing, maybe just to touch on before moving on to the end of today's show, is a good result for Wolves. Despite talking about how bad the defences have been recently, there was 2 particularly excellent performances from young Kilman and also Connor Cody at the back for Wolves. Connor Cody, I mean, I think Jamie Carragher is just sending him texts every night to ask him what he's doing in January. I don't know whether that could be something to watch for Liverpool fans, but that I'm sure Connor Cody would very much welcome a return. Oh, yeah, go for
a bit of breaking news. So, do you know we were joking about Fernandes and penalties?
He's not missed again, is he?
Well, yeah, he missed one and then he got to retake it. So he's just.
This is with their Champions League game. PSG, is it? So so they're 1-0 up, are they?
Yeah, 1-0 up. Fernandes penalty.
Well, there we go.
So,
Away in Paris as well. There we go.
Away in Paris, yeah, it's a good result. If it's true.
Okay, so what we thought we could very quickly do at the end of today's show is try and give the listeners a taste of what potentially they missed with just a little bit of chat about some transfer business. And so we picked out a couple of bits where we think there's potentially some good business done and it's worth keeping an eye on it from an FPL point of view. Are you ready to rattle through these, Rob?
Yeah.
Good. So we have Thomas Partey, of course. Thomas Partey. He's come in, and not in Thomas himself, but does he potentially bring value to the Arsenal defenders if he does what he's brought in to do?
Yeah, I mean, there's a saying, isn't there? If my grandmother had balls, she'd be my grandfather. It's the same thing. So it's like, until he starts proving it, we're not going to know.
We will have to watch the space on that one. Aston Villa, we covered this a little bit, Ross Barkley, but he's in at 5.9 million at the moment. If he can get some consistency with an ownership of 2.2%, he's definitely some value for a differential. Do you agree?
Yes.
Excellent. Burnley. Burnley's only two signings in the window were Dale Stevens and Will Norris, who was a backup keeper to replace Joe Hart. For me, this seals or signs on the dotted line their contract to relegation.
Yes, I think that Sean Dyche has done wonderfully well to get them where they are, and I think that he almost left because of this issue around transfers and the lack of. But given that they don't have match day crowds, given that the impact that COVID has had, I think the club has actually been really sensible. And if they go down, at least they're still going to have a club, and they haven't tried to borrow on the fact that they've got this imaginary money tree that's going to keep
absolutely.
So I think I think if they do go down, it'll be a shame, but I think it's done in the right decision for the club. It's just unfortunate.
I like that, Rob. That is good insight. Moving on, Chelsea. Can you tell me how many players went out on loan for Chelsea in this last transfer window?
The last time I checked, it was about 362.
Well, you're close.
Sure.
You're close.
Yeah,
it was 14. So a club with a very different model to transfers.
Right, 14. Oh, wow.
14
I know that about 12 of those are on Abramovich's boat cleaning it. I think that's...
Wow.
That's
the less said about, look, we don't want to end up in the bottom of the River Taff with boulders tied to our ankles or anything. So the less said about that, the better. Fulham, I've got a couple for the watch list. Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Ademola Lookman, they're clearly going to get game time. They're clearly talented footballers, and for me they are definitely ones for watch, because let's be honest, there will become a time where Scott Parker and Fulham realise they have to go for it a little bit and score goals in order to stay up. So that, I think, is one to watch there.
Yeah, I think he's made a good choice in going to the Chelsea pub team, which is Fulham. So I think that it's going to be an interesting see how he gets on there.
Absolutely. We've touched on this before and where there was potential value, but Ryan Brewster made his move to Sheffield United. It was at big expense, and you would think there would become a time where he gets a run in the team. So definitely one to watch, given his such low value in the game. Another one I thought was a bit of an interesting, a bit left field or right midfield, you could say, is for Southampton is Mr. Theo Walcott, who immediately came in and had some attacking return. And, you know, we touched on how good Danny Ings is at the moment. You know, if Theo Walcott stays fit again, he's not a bad player. And I think he's back at Southampton. He's back at a club that he loves and that loves him. And let's watch his space for him, I think, as well.
Yeah, I was pleased to see him go back there. I don't think he's really been used.
Another nice guy who deserves a bit of a break, I think.
I'd like to see him do well at Southampton.
Absolutely. And the last one I picked out, again, is a little bit left field, is your right back for West Ham in Kufal. He's come in, he's had a clean sheet and an assist, totaling 9 points in his first two games since making the move from, I believe, the Czech Republic League. Apologies if I'm wrong on that one. He's currently in game at 4.5 million. And I think once West Ham drag themselves out of this tough run, that could potentially be an interesting source of points there for for such low value.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it could be going back to the Aston Villa stuff. A lot of their defenders are 4.5, just under 5. So it's a similar kind of thing. I think that West Ham, if they get on a good run, if they manage to get through this, then could be a value kind of, or a differential even.
Absolutely. Well, that's it. We've wrapped it up. There are kind of transfer pickouts and the ones to watch there, or the ones to avoid maybe. But that's it, Rob. We've made it to the end. It's been an absolute delight speaking to you. Thanks everybody for listening, if indeed you still are. Don't forget to hit us up on our YouTube channel, the TASL Fantasy Football Chat podcast. Please do us a favor, and if you enjoyed what you heard, please click the like button, hit the subscribe, and do share it with all your FPL mates out there. All that stuff helps us out. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at PJR Hawkins. Rob, you created that Twitter account for yourself yet?
Yeah, no.
You're just afraid of all the abuse that you're going to start receiving.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna do it this week. I think
Excellent.
I'll get a Twitter account.
Good man. So keep an eye out for incoming wildcard videos on the channel, and yeah, we'll be back same time next week, Rob.
Yep, same time next week.
Tidy. See you later, mate.
Bye.